Hey, Chen here. As you guys know, I got my racing license just earlier this year, and this time I'm really putting it to use. I just did a race a couple weeks ago at Hyperfest at Virginia International Raceway in a BMW M240IR. This time I'm racing in Northern California at Sonoma Raceway in a Spec E30. And doing these races will get me out of a NASA provisional license, and I will have a full racing license. So that way I can continue racing. I can do endurance racing, I can do whatever kind of racing. So I'm gonna take you guys along, but we're doing things a little bit backwards this time because I really wanted to focus on my driving, and I really wanted to make sure that I did a good job and I learned the track as fast as I could. I wasn't really able to film that much. I wasn't really able to vlog that much through this first day because it's legitimately the first time I'm ever laying eyes on this track. I've driven it on the sim for a couple laps, but I'm just not the best at sim driving. It just doesn't translate to me that well. With that said, after a couple laps, I kind of got the hang of driving this car. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna backtrack and I'm gonna talk about what's happened so far. And then we're gonna catch up with my buddy Ray, who prepped all these cars and built a lot of these vehicles. What he does is he just specifically handles BMW E46, E30, E36 race cars. He has so many at his shop here in Northern California. And he rented me this particular E30, took the car out for a couple of practice laps, and I followed Ray in this green E30. He showed me the line, but it was really hard to keep up with him. He's so fast. He did a couple slow laps for me, but I started kind of building pace, and I got a 206, which is really, really slow. But again, first time ever driving this track, and also first time driving a Spec E30. Second session out, I felt a little better, and then that's kind of when my time started going down. And then for the first race, I had a chance to talk to Silas, who is such a winning driver here in Spec E30, and he's also a Pikes Peak racer. We've had a chance to photograph him before in his crazy sprint car that he brought up Pikes Peak. He walked me through every single corner by corner, his method and what he's doing. And that helped me quite a bit. So I was stuck at a 2-minute mark and I couldn't go below 2 minutes. And these guys are going 156, 157, 158 all day, which means they're pulling away from me 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds a lap, which at the end of a 30-minute race, they're gone. With that said, I really tried my best to apply what he taught me, and I was finally able to get into the 159s. I got a 159.3. For me, this is so much just about a learning experience. I have so much to learn on the racing side in terms of wheeling a car 10/10ths for that long, but also all the little logistical things, right? Like getting your car weighed, getting your car teched, making sure I have a patch on my suit, making sure I'm wearing the right things, making sure I'm lining up right, making sure I'm not late for grid. There's just so many things. It's like a information overload, and it's so nice to have Ray to walk me through essentially what I would say is my first real NASA weekend. Hyperfest was great, but it was just one race, and it was AHF GT, and it was one class, and it was something that I wouldn't say I was really rushed through, but it was a really good experience. This is so much driving. If you guys want to get into wheel-to-wheel racing, I highly suggest trying to rent something like a Spec Miata or a E30 and then doing it, racing in multiple classes. So for example, this weekend I'm racing in Spec E30, which is its own class, as well as ST6, right? So it's mixed class racing, all these different types of cars. I'm getting passed left and right. I'm passing a couple people It is so crazy. It's very chaotic, but you're always watching your mirrors. You're always making sure you give people space. What I'm also racing in is Spec E30, and first race, I qualified second, and I finished second in ST6. There were only a couple competitors, I think like 6 competitors, but we were, I don't know, I mean, I feel like I was going as fast as my abilities allowed me. I think it's just a bunch of back runners, maybe a lot of people that are trying to get more experience doing something similar to what I'm doing. But we all got grouped together in ST6, and it was a rolling start. It was so many cars on the track at one time. It was a lot of fun. It was my second ever race, and for somebody who's just really diving headfirst into it, I feel like maybe I should have felt a little more nervous, but I didn't feel an inkling, not even a tiny bit nervous at all, because I feel like I prepared myself for this moment, and it was a lot of fun. I had so much fun. I was battling with these other 2 Miatas, one in ST5 and one in ST6, and I was able to at least make one pass, and it was just really a lot of fun. It was a clean race, and I tried to be as careful as possible, and that's where I got my fastest lap. In the race, I got a 1:59.3 or 1:59.4, one of those. My second race didn't go as well. It was chaotic. It was like a war zone out there, and everybody told me that it's usually not this chaotic. So many cars wrecked, a lot of Miatas wrecked, one of the Spec E30s wrecked. I got passed under yellow. It was just so crazy. It was so insane. And I did have a minor incident. I tapped somebody else's bumper, but after we pulled in, I went up to the guy. The guy didn't even realize I tapped him, which is good. But it was totally my mistake. I got distracted by this other car, this Miata that came off and then came back on. And I was just so focused on making sure I don't hit this Miata that I just had a lapse in concentration, and that's all it really takes to make a really big mistake. So just tapped him. No harm, no foul. There was little to no damage on his car, and my car, one side of the bumper just got pushed in a little bit. Good thing is they're metal bumpers, and Ray has a spare one, and he's just gonna replace it real quick. It was definitely a learning experience. It was really trial by fire. I'm learning so much every time I put on that race suit and I get into that car. Everything that I'm doing this weekend is really just about learning. I'm not trying to win in any way. I'm not trying to place well. I just want to get these races under my belt, and the more, the better. So tomorrow, looking forward to 3 more races. It's very evident right away that I'm going to need to push hard when I get home to work on my endurance more. I'm going to work on playing on the sim as much as I can, maybe even for hours at a time, just to build my endurance in my arms and just to build my endurance for focus. There's just so much in terms of like having 100% concentration, especially on this track. One of the things that I talk to a lot of these racers about is the fact that you don't get time to rest here. It's almost like there's no straightaway at all. You're always turning in some way or shape. And the tiny straightaway that we do have, if you look to the right of you, if you look to the left of you, there's race cars there. And you have to hold full focus just to make sure you don't hit anybody. Just wanted to give a huge shout out to my friends at Maxxis Tires. I reached out to them because I knew I was going to do this race, and Ray told me that I could survive on these old Maxxis tires that he had. But I figured, you know what, I wanted the best experience possible for me doing a full Spec E30 weekend. So I reached out to Maxxis and they sent me 4 brand new of these tires here. They sent me 4 brand new Victra RC1. This is the spec tire that they run for Spec E30, and I cannot believe how much grip they have for it just being 205s. So they're 205 50/15, and so I got these as brand new tires. They're not brand new anymore because I've raced with them quite a bit, but it's really incredible how much grip they have and how long they can last. What blows me away is that after a 30-minute session, it still has a lot of grip. Even though they're really, really hot, after driving on them for 30 minutes, it blew me away at how they were able to handle the heat. And also braking performance. Surprisingly, these E30s have ABS. I didn't know they had ABS. And I can pretty much stomp on the brakes as hard as I need to when I'm going into these corners. And there's 2 huge, heavy braking zones here at Sonoma. And I just have to rely on the fact that when I just slam on those brakes, that these tires will slow this hunk of metal down to a point where I can turn. I feel like I was closer to my limit. I just had my best lap in that race, which was 1:59 something. And it was just me following these other Miatas. And also part of it is just me using more of the track as Silas walked me through the track corner by corner. Really helped. But wow, what a rush. That was so much fun. When I had that one pass, I was like, oh wow. I mean, I felt like at first this was faster than the Miatas. As time went on and as the Maxxis tires got hotter and as I was just getting more fatigued, I was slowing down more and more, and I was messing up, especially around the carousel area. So what are you saying, the play? What was the play?
So people would start playing around with tire pressures and like find that optimal zone of operation. So some people would actually raise their pressures in the beginning just to get that extra jump right off the start. You'd be quicker the first couple laps, but then that fall off would come in. But if you could get ahead of the field and you could drive really defensively, it didn't matter if your tires would fall off, you could hold people back. Where then other people have the strategy of going a lower pressure for more of a longevity move, and then have a grip towards the end of the race.
So when you say a big field, like what are we talking about here? Because today there's only 10 of us.
Yeah.
Big field, when you were racing heavily, what was it like?
It was closer to like high teens, 20s. Like we, in Northern California, we would typically have anywhere from like 18 to 22 cars in the field. That was back in the heydays, was like 2017, 2018 was when the series was really big in Northern California. Specifically Spec E30. Yes.
But now it seems like Miata's pretty much taking over. Spec Miata.
I mean, Spec Miata's like held strong for the longest time. Like I think a couple factors that played into Spec E30 was Spec E46 was a new series that came in for the spec class. So a lot of the BMW enthusiast diehards, they decided to move up into Spec E46. There was also a couple drivers that ran Spec E30 with us in the NorCal region that moved on to IMSA, and now they're racing in SRO, GT4 class racing, stuff like that. So it's always fun to like watch them on TV and be like, that guy never beat me. But
so then, how come you didn't move up to Spec E46?
It's always a cost, right? Like motorsports, especially at the grassroots level, like there isn't a lot of sponsorship here. There's not a lot of eyes on it. There's not live streams, you know, so finding people to help offset the cost is a lot more difficult comparative. Right,
because the jump from E30 to E46 is crazy.
Yeah.
It's like probably 4 or 5 times, you think?
Yeah, to build a car alone is probably over double the cost. Not to mention your running costs are going to increase as well. Tires are going to be more expensive, brakes are going to be more expensive, fuel, things like that. All things to take into consideration. So, you know, you're going from basically building one of these for 15 to 20 grand to now talking about a $50,000 to a $60,000 build.
But in terms of just getting into club racing, this is probably the one, huh?
This is the way to go.
Yeah,
Between
either
this
or
and
Spec Miata.
because it's the running costs are cheap. Since it's a spec class, you can find used cars for sale, so you don't necessarily have to build your own. You can just jump into it, and then your running costs are super low as well. The tires are 205s. They're really, really tiny from Maxxis.
Yeah.
It's all to just keep all of that cost down.
I also just wanted to give a huge shout out to NASA for inviting me. It's really incredible what they're doing for club racing. They're making it super accessible, and one of the things that I talked about in my previous video about me getting my racing license was the fact that I could not believe how easy it was, considering how I had no idea how to get into this sort of racing. What's also neat to me is that I'm really glad that I went through the NASA school to get my provisional license, because doing that school definitely got me prepped for this. Even though it was just one weekend of driving and instruction, it's a big deal. Like, the stuff that they teach you is so useful as a guideline to get through a weekend like this. I'm just glad I took those steps to go through the right channels to prep myself for this. And that's probably why I didn't feel any nervousness. I got all the nervousness out when I was getting my license. I cannot tell you how difficult it was to get through that weekend, partially because it was my fault. I didn't study as much as I should have. Let's talk about E30s.
E30s, it's about all I know.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate you prepping this car for me. This incredible race car. You gave me, honestly, the best looking one. And then while you were driving this, which has seen a lot of battle.
Yeah, this car, actually, if you want a little background, this car is one of the first cars in California, if not Northern California. It was originally built, I think the build started in 2008. And a little bit of backstory on this car, it is damaged, maybe since I've gotten it. But a friend of mine had it built from North Bay Bavarian in Santa Rosa, and he purchased the car from a woman in Marin County. This is the lore of the story, that it was won on The Price is Right in 1989.
No way.
Yep. This car, and he was the second owner. He bought it from her.
Wait, so she won it?
In 1989 on The Price is Right.
And then she sold it?
To him. She owned it until 2008-ish. I think he bought it in 2007 or 2008. And then he made it into a race car. So the car was originally black, and then he liked the green. This is a Porsche GT3 green.
Yeah.
And so he had it painted green, and he raced it. His window was here, and he had a lot of wins. Greg Peterson, raced with us for years. A super nice guy and a really good driver. And he and actually the gentleman that races the Spec E46 now, Bennett, they raced together. They went to the track together, did everything together. And so the car has like a good little history, and I've bought it from him and then sold it to a client, bought it back, sold it to a client, because I always wanted to keep it because the story's cool. And then actually on your car that you're driving, this is actually the license plate that belongs on the car. It's kind of hard to see, but it actually says E30 Spec. And so he had a personalized license plate because he used to drive it to and from the tracks and when he tracked it and stuff.
So Spec E30 really is, I mean, aside from Spec Miata, it's the easiest thing to get into in terms of getting into wheel-to-wheel racing at all.
Exactly, and literally it's the easiest to get into. I mean, if you look at the cars, all the cars, however the cages are built, when you open the door, they're easy to climb into. The whole reason I've had Spec Miatas, and I've never raced one, but I've tracked them and such, but just like, whether you're skinny and easy and mobile to get in the car or bigger, they're easy to get in and out of. To me, it's the best platform and when you're learning.
Right, and in terms of cost too, it being a spec class, even though the E30 chassis as a BMW chassis, they're getting more expensive, this is still a very cheap race car.
Yes, the chassis itself could cost you a couple extra bucks these days just because everybody that grew up and was in high school in 1985 to 1992, this is the car they saw, right? BMW 325s, and it was like, ooh, I want to have one of those. So as they've gotten older and can afford a car that was the car they wanted when they were kids, so it drove the price up a little. But other than that, The cars are relatively inexpensive as a chassis, especially a donor. When they have a blown engine or transmission or they got water damage, which makes great donors, when you find them, they're just a little bit harder to find. And believe it or not, I've had a couple cars that I wanted to make into race cars, but they're so pristine, I don't want to kill the car itself, so I leave them as street cars. So you find one that has a little bit of damage or something and make it into a car.
So then what's the range about how much these go for now?
Wow.
That's a loaded question, huh?
That is, I can't even.
I mean, bottom, and then
Bottom
top.
line. I have a car for sale right now that's one of my clients, maybe $8,500. Great car, could finish towards the front, but it looks like it's been driven hard. Like
Right.
just, it's worn. But
It's like a tin can.
because it's an old car, so they start to fall apart. The seams start to come apart, but you can still finish on a podium in it and have a great time. And so it's fairly inexpensive at $8,500. And this is turnkey. Maybe the fire system needs to be updated or something, but other than that, the car is turnkey ready to go. Up to, if you have a car like this orange car here that was one of my clients, that car might have, I mean, I can guesstimate and probably over-exaggerate, it probably has $20,000 worth of data in it.
Oh, wow.
The car alone. It has tire temp sensors that I had a fabricator friend of mine, Kugelworks, make, that you can adjust the can so you can see the temperature of the tires. I mean, and all the data. It has everything on it that you want. Steering angle, brake pressure, throttle position. Has lambda sensors all tied into the AIM, the tire temp sensors, everything's tied into the AIM, Smarty Cam, MXS dash. So you can go ape on the data. It doesn't, that's all personal information that you want to take to make yourself better, but it also drives the cost of the car up a little. Whereas if you take a simple car, it would be less. So a car like that would be slightly more, maybe in the $20,000 to $25,000 range, especially if you're getting some spares.
That's still not bad considering it's a full-blown race car.
Not only that, I like to say this, that car will run up front. It can easily be on the podium. Whereas if you're talking about Spec Miata, if you really want a podium Spec Miata, you're probably, from what I've seen, in the $35,000 to $40,000 range for a used one.
Let's talk about how much it costs to race this. For example, how much it cost me to race this weekend, so everybody knows.
Sure. What happens is most the people that will rent a car, North and Southern California, even on the East Coast, a renter will pay their entry fee through NASA or SCCA, whoever they go with. We race Spec E30 primarily in NASA because they've created this environment for us to race in across the country, and it's been great. But the car can be raced other places, so it's highly versatile. A lot of clients that do arrive and drive, you can usually find the prices probably around $2,000 a day to rent the car. $2,150, maybe somebody has it as inexpensive as $1,500, probably doesn't include new tires. I offer a service that is arrive and drive. So it's everything but new tires, only because that, to me, sometimes it's not necessary. A lot of our competitors put new tires on the car and they use them all weekend. For instance, this weekend I've been on used tires. A couple of the other competitors have been on used tires because Maxxis has provided us a tire that is durable enough to use as it wears, which is a great product, and everybody in the class is using it, so it makes it doable. And it also, if you tend to be a little bit on the pointier end of the field and you're using new tires, it brings the field closer together instead of having to buy, make everybody buy new tires. So that part's great. And then when I have an arrive and drive customer, I offer everything. All they have to do is bring their suit and they pay their fee. It's all trackside support, fuel, fluids, everything is included. And then I also can offer, if it's a track I know, I can offer some coaching, or a lot of times I have people around that can help the drivers with coaching.
Yeah, I think my takeaway is that I just don't have the time. And like you said off camera, potentially if somebody were to get into this and build their own car and do all their own maintenance or whatever, yes, they could do it for a lot cheaper per weekend. But if you have the time, more power to you. Someone like me, I don't have any time at all. I don't have time to race. I don't have time to shoot. I don't have time for anything. I'm so lucky in that I get to come here and get in a car that's already prepped for this track. And also the thing that I'm really taking away that's worth the most to me is learning from yourself and all of the people around you, and being able to watch you drive. You know, you took me for a couple laps, but also just like the little things, like you reminding me, okay, go weigh the car, go do this, go check in there, go whatever. All this stuff, like, it's so over my head. I'm already just so focused on even just learning the track. I don't have any more mental capacity to do anything else.
Yep.
You know, so you're just like the person filling up fuel, you know, putting on cool suit, installing cool suit, whatever, checking everything.
Yeah.
Bleeding brakes, this, that, and other, everything, you and your team. And even to the point where as soon as I pull off track, I get handed a ice cold bottle of water to rehydrate, you know, because the sessions are so close. I barely have enough time just to recover.
That is the one thing. If you want to double up and do more than one session, you have to have help. It is extremely difficult. One thing we did with you today is I put your tires on before, the Maxxis tires on before Group C, which you probably wasn't necessary, but we had less than a 20-minute span in between your Group C qualifying and your Group A, the Spec E30, where you needed the tires, but we wouldn't have had time, even having extra help. If you were trying to do that on your own, you could be flustered, you wouldn't get back in the car. If you forgot to tighten your seatbelts or, you know, put your video camera in, it just distracts you from when you get on track, and if you're second guessing yourself, you wouldn't feel comfortable. So that is one of the things with Arrive and Drive.
Can we take a look at the car itself?
Of course.
Can we take a look at the engine? I haven't even, that's how reliable this car is. I haven't even popped the engine myself.
So this is going to be funny because E30s are quirky, especially when you have different things. We have hood pins on this car, but we do not have a proper hood prop that is from the factory in this car. I took it out, so I actually have to hold this up or get a broomstick, which would something you'd probably see in the 70s racing, somebody with a broomstick. But this engine is relatively stock. You can build them, but if you rebuild the engine and you put too much machining in it, like with the head or the pistons or anything like that, you could be over horsepower because they're only allowed to have 160.9 horsepower. So
And that's on their dyno?
their dyno at the wheels, by the way, at the
Got
wheels.
it.
So this weekend we don't have a dyno, but most of the cars that we're racing with are relatively close. You can see when you're on track that when you race them against your competitor, I mean, if they're driving away from you, there might be a car or two out there. We have 10 this weekend, but we used to have 30, but everybody's pretty evenly matched. And the nice thing about keeping the engine relatively stock as well is reliability. And so, knock on wood, that we have good
Stock
reliability.
airbox even.
Stock airbox. Actually, there's a horn inside here that came from the factory, and it has to be in here. They tech that once in a while, and if it's not in there, you get in trouble. There's no performance advantage. It's just one of those things. You have to have it, and if it's not in there, they would DQ you.
So one of the things that really surprised me was the fact that it doesn't have power steering. As soon as I got in it, I was like, uh-oh, the power steering's out. And then I inquired about that, and one of your guys told me, yeah, these don't have power steering.
They do not. The power steering, so I've been told that it's about 5 horsepower. It takes about 5 horsepower of the engine. So when you're limited to 160.9, you take the power steering out, and it actually had a separate pump, and the power steering used to be here. But you also lose the power steering reservoir, so there's less likeliness of having fluid drop on the track or a failure, because if it failed or if the belt threw and it hit the alternator belt or water pump belt, then you could have more problems. So by not having it, and again, these cars actually have smaller tires than like a Spec E46, so you don't need power steering. Once you get on track, you don't need power steering.
So yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I'm dealing with, because my scrawny arms, you know, I don't have that much power. But after driving it all day, which by the way, oh my God, talk about seat time. I had hours and hours of seat time. I kind of got used to it, honestly. I did get used to it.
I prefer it. You can feel when you turn, you know, you can feel your input, you can feel the car when it has feedback. To me, it's the way to go, especially in this car. Again, the tires are 205 50/15s, and so, and by the way, there is fluid in the rack. It's just not power assisted.
Got
So
it.
we leave fluid in there. So when you turn it, you have some resistance, and you also, it helps.
So, because it's not meant to be a
lubricate.
manual rack.
No, it is not. No.
What else did you modify in this engine bay, or what else are you allowed to even modify in this engine bay?
Well, that's a loaded question, because what did I modify versus what can be modified? Just kidding.
So one of the things that really surprised me is that there's no fan.
No electric fan. A lot of people add electric fans. There's controversy whether or not they help cooling, but definitely if you're sitting on the grid, or when you go up to we do standing starts. So if you go up and it's a super hot day, dry day like it could be here, sometimes it's over 100, if the car could overheat. So an electric fan would be nice, but once you get going on the track, you don't need an electric fan. I'd have to say half the E30s have electric fans, half do not. This particular car does not have an electric fan. So when you're on grid, I just ask you to turn it off once it gets to like 190 or 200.
Does it help with draw, like less draw on the alternator or anything like that?
There is some probably draw on with the electric fan, but once you're, again, that's just when you're sitting. So the alternator's charging the battery and it's keeping the engine running. So there's no problem. But once you get on track, definitely you would turn the electric fan off so there was no extra draw.
And then, so besides that, everything else, headers, exhaust, seems like it's mostly stock.
The headers are stock, they have to be, and then there's a specific exhaust for Spec E30s that it's basically a 2-into-1 header, and it goes to the back to the glass pack, and then it just exits towards the rear. So that is stock. The intake, like you mentioned, this is the air mass meter. Now they have an electronic one that you can get. I believe it's out of Florida. This still just has the electric one. These do fail because it's just the electronic parts after 35 years. Throttle body, everything else is basically from the factory. You can change the plugs. There's a couple different plugs you can use, but they're all basically the same. Water, you have to use water and or water wetter, which is a red line product that I put in my cars. Otherwise, you're not allowed in racing cars to have coolant.
And I'm assuming this is aftermarket.
This is just a strut brace. There's controversy to whether or not they help. If you get in an accident and the strut brace is here, and let's say you hit on the left side, it can actually transfer the damage to the right-hand side, which is a problem. But if you don't get in an accident, it actually can help the performance. And so we tend to put them in. I think most cars have them. Silas might not be running his anymore, but most of us run them.
And then, so what kind of coilovers are you allowed to run?
So this car actually has the original H&R springs, and it has, all the cars have to run the Bilstein specified struts and then shocks in the rear. And this has the old suspension. The other cars, the orange one, the white one, and the green one that are in here, they all run the ground control newer, which is a coilover, modified coilover, and then it's a coil in the back that has height adjusters. Same struts and shocks, but just different springs.
Anything else on the body, on the outside? It seems like it's pretty much just stock body.
It's 100%. You cannot, now they allow you to put Lexan windows only in here, in the quarter windows. Everything else has to be factory glass, factory glass.
But it seems like it doesn't really matter anyways if the minimum weight is
2,700 pounds. So we do have a couple competitors that are, you're extremely fit, however you want to say. And then there's some gentlemen that we race with that are larger, so they may have some weight, so it may help. But here's the thing, it's also, you want to keep the weight from being up top, right? You'd like to wait. So if you take and put Lexan windows here, you save a couple pounds, and you can put more weight down below, maybe in the trunk or in the passenger compartment.
Yeah, because one of the times we weighed at 2635, so you had to put in quite a bit of weight.
Yeah, I put almost 70 pounds in the car because I knew you were going back out, and so I had to compensate for the fuel you were going to use, and then we put weight in the trunk.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about the wheel, tire, and brake combo. So, are you limited to size for the wheels?
Yes, they have to be 15 by 7-inch wheels. These are Team Dynamic. This is motorsports, but they're Team Dynamics. They come out of England. To me, they're the preferred wheel. I love them to death. I think every car I use, I make sure my clients have them on them. And then the Maxxis tires are required by NASA, and we have to use those. The 205 50/15.
You know what really surprised me about this? How good the brakes are.
Should I tell you which brake pads I use? I'm adamant. They're the factory size rotor, factory caliper.
Like
You can
actually
rebuild
OEM BMW
Yeah.
ones?
OEM. And you can buy remanufactured, but it's the same part. They just go through them, clean them up, put new seals on them. I sell the brake pads to
Right.
people too.
Okay. All right.
So I get them, I supply them to my customers. I use Raybestos.
You're kidding.
I swear by Raybestos. Raybestos pads, they make our racing pads. They are insane. The brakes are incredible.
Yeah, there's no fade. After 30 minutes of
Yeah.
stomping on them,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty hard on brakes to the point where I'm cooking some corners sometimes. But yeah, these were fine. They didn't
To me,
fade at all.
they feel the best.
Yeah.
I sell other pads too. I have no
Right.
problem. If somebody comes to me and wants a different pad, I will sell them the pad. If I have them in stock or something, I just prefer these Raybestos. It's how you drive. This fits my driving style, it fits yours. The gentleman that used to drive the orange car, he loved these Raybestos pads so much,
Right.
and he always wanted fresh ones in his car. He loved them.
So then,
And in the back, it's a factory pad, factory size rotor, but it's, again, we use a Raybestos pad in the rear too. We just match them front and rear.
so
For
are you-
ABS, by the way, let me say that. We run ABS on our cars.
And is that a factory ABS?
A factory, yep, 100%. Has to be.
I can't believe it. From 1984.
Well, technically in 1984, the BMW E30 did not have ABS. ABS didn't start, I believe, until late 85 into 86. And then they changed the unit slightly, I believe, in 1989-ish, late 88, 89. But yeah, it's a factory Bosch system.
Are you allowed to run stainless steel lines?
Yes, recommended 100% as well. You don't have to, but I would always recommend it. You're putting so much heat through them. That's the one thing with the Raybestos too, that you build so much heat up in the brakes.
Can we take a look at the trunk area? So then this is added weight. This is what you were talking about, 70 pounds added weight.
That's a little bit less there because what I
right.
did was we can only put so much weight in so many areas. So I also have a cool suit in here, which
Yep.
you ended up using a cool
Yep.
suit. And so when you have the larger box like this cool suit, then you fill it with ice and water, you're probably adding, I only have it halfway full because we don't need you to be overweight.
This is so, this is a game changer for me. I'm
You
never
liked it.
going to drive in the summer
Yeah.
without that.
So you did like it. You
Oh my
adapted
God, it was
to
the
it quickly?
best. Oh, it
Did you
was the
leave it
best.
on the whole time?
Yes.
Okay.
I needed it.
Oh, wow.
I was overheating.
Yeah.
And then stock battery, you don't need a lightweight battery. Are you allowed to run a lightweight battery on this?
Yes, you can. Again, it just depends on weight. So that's actually the factory size battery with the factory tie down, which is completely legal. And then the battery is this is where BMW had in the E30s the battery. So they did it for weight because the car is actually extremely well balanced the way it is. From the factory, I want to say it's 50 point something in the front, 49 point something in the rear. They're really well balanced. And so it's easy to keep that if you keep everything relatively the same.
Let's talk about the interior real quick.
Sure.
Pretty bare bones.
Yeah.
You cut out the door area, or the ones that you build, you cut out the door area.
Sure.
The cage, just NASA road race legal.
Yeah, just a basic road race approved, probably a couple extra bars here and there that aren't necessary per the rules, especially on that side. But, half of it's safety, right? You want safety, but you also want rigidity. The cars, once you put the cage in it, with the 6 points, if you add the footwell protection, it adds a couple extra points. They're extremely safe cars. Sad to say, they do get wrecked and they've been totaled, but people walk away because they're.
Is it mandated that you have to run another seat here?
No, I have that seat in there just to give track rides. So when a person shows up that has or hasn't been on track and they're driving and they want to see the line, I have a second seat in there.
And then the shifter, is that stock? It's actually really short in terms of the throw.
It is. This is an AKG shifter. This is probably my #1 preferred shifter for the E30. The company, the people are extremely nice. I get along with them very well, and I love their product. I've had no issues with their products, and so it shortens the shifting, and it actually makes the car much more enjoyable to drive when you have one.
So you got an AIM solo setup, which is really useful. And I didn't start using it until I started understanding the track It was super nice to be able to see like if I was going faster or slower. And then of course it was my best lap time here.
The predictive feature makes it extremely nice. This is the MXS dash, and it just it highlights certain things. You'll have your rev lights up on top besides the rev bar here, but it actually lights up and lets you know. So out of the corner of your eye, you can see if you're not feeling the engine or something, you can shift in the, you know, when you're supposed to. But also the predictive timing just makes it, if you just glance and you can see the plus or minus.
Right.
So you know if you've made improvements or you're hindering yourself. Obviously traffic, there's tons of things that can play a part in it, but if you are in a certain section of the track and you can just look down and go, oh, I did that better. I thought it felt better. So,
yeah.
Yeah. And then of course, when you tie this aim into the Smarty Cam and it's all seamless and it
Yes, this is the camera.
It turns on when you go on track, it turns off when you want to download or look at your information. If you've programmed it properly, then you can see the data elements on it. This car, the way the client originally wanted it, has a steering sensor, it has brake pressure and throttle position sensor. So when you take those, you can do overlays with other people. So I drove the car with you in it, and you can overlay the data and compare your information.
Otherwise, it's pretty bare bones in here.
Pretty bare, but this car is actually, I don't want to downtrodden it, but you can see the paint on the floor is actually the original factory. All it is having the sound deadening scraped off. It was never fancy painted or anything, but the car just, it's super simple that way. You can literally strip it. You put the required suspension and stuff on it. You get the cage and all the safety equipment, and you can go. You don't have to paint them super fancy. In this car, I mean, not to brag, but this is a great car.
Yeah.
I didn't build this car originally. I maintained it for a client, and well, you know, we've had great luck with this car.
Oh, well, I enjoy driving this thing. This thing is so much fun to drive. I can't wait to get more wheel time in it tomorrow. Thank you so much for this weekend. Thank you so much for walking us through one of these builds. So you build other cars too. You build like E46s?
I have. For the most part, I maintain E46s for a couple clients. Actually, these I just do transport and trackside support because another gentleman, the last car, JP Cadu at A1, he maintains those cars, and then I bring them. But I've had other cars that were E46s that I maintained. I don't anymore. I'm just doing E30s again. But yeah, I'm open to it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, if you guys want to rent an E30, maybe this one from Ray, hit him up. I'll put the information in the description. All right, day 2, I'm gonna go in for my first qualifying race. It's 3 races today. This is gonna be the Group C race, which means I'm gonna be with so many other different classes. I'll be faster than like 3 or 4 people, and then everyone else is gonna be faster than me. So it's gonna be interesting to dodge faster cars. I'm just gonna leave as much room as I can for everybody. But yesterday was great. I started in 2nd place out of, I think, 7 people in ST6, and then I finished 2nd place. I did pass one person. I think he was in ST5, but he was in a Miata. So we'll see how this goes. I'm excited. 3 more races left, so here we go. Last 2 races, it's been a crazy weekend. If you want to do this sort of club racing, I highly suggest you try to do 2 classes in one weekend, exactly what I'm doing, either in Spec Miata or Spec E30, which allows you to just get so much seat time. So I realized that just from me doing all of these races, it's 6 races. Now I added up total. I thought it was just 4. It's 6 races to equal at least 3 hours of racing time. But then on top of that, we have all of the practice, warm-up, qualifying. It's well over 4 hours, almost 5 hours of driving. And in a car like this, I don't have that much arm strength. I'm beat, but I'm gonna see this through. I really want to do the last 2 races. I might take it kind of easy in this next race. If you guys have, one thing I wanted to talk about on the first race from this morning was this one really hairy moment that I had with the Corvettes. So they're lapping me because obviously the Corvettes are just so fast and they start first. So we start way in the last group. And after a couple laps, the Corvette started catching up to me. And then we're going into this one turn. It's like a U-turn, turn 4, where I just let off a little bit and I went wide just to give the Corvettes a lot more room. But one, I don't know what he was doing. He was maybe dive bombing or whatever he was trying to make position. He locked up or understeered really bad and then just dove straight in front of me, just past me. And again, I got on the brakes because I didn't want to hit anybody or I didn't want him to hit me. And I just let him go back on. But wow, what a scene. So it's been a couple incidents today that was just crazy. So now I'm gonna go and do my second to last race, and that's a mixed class racing again. Like I said, I'm just gonna stay out of trouble. disclosure, last race, you won, of course.
Yeah.
And you're bullying me. Come on. Bully the new guy, why don't you?
I know, for the
you
final...
and Anna's dad and Anna, everybody's just bullying me.
So yeah, for the final race, I decided to start from the back. Swept the first 2 races of the weekend, so I thought, make it a little more fun, see if I could go through the field. So when I got to you, knew it was you, of course, had to get as close to your rear bumper as possible without touching you. I think I might have spooked you a couple times, but no, it was awesome to see you out there.
Well, I knew you were there, but I felt pretty comfortable. But it was funny because your brother was saying that you were so close to me, my license plate started flapping up and down.
Yeah, the arrow was enough that was so close. It was almost like in NASCAR when they try to get the debris off the front grille. So
that's awesome.
I was trying to get close. I was trying to spook you a little bit, get in your mirrors, rattle your cage.
It was a lot of fun. I was so happy to be able to experience that kind of racing. I mean, it was messy, don't get me wrong. So many Miatas all over the place. It was like chaos. Man, that was just such an experience. You guys have so much fun out here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the beauty of spec racing, and then it's the beauty of multi-class racing, right? You know, the element of traffic, having to work through those Miatas, it's just a whole nother variable.
Yeah, so that's the thing, is after all said and done, there was so many crazy things right off the bat. Yellow flag, Miatas crossing the track, and then somehow I ended up in second place, and then I felt pretty good. I felt like it was good until first place caught up with Miata traffic. That's when I got left, because as soon as there was 2 or 3 Miatas in between, I was like, uh-oh, I don't know what to do.
Right.
You know, it was really hard for me to pass, even though they're slower. It's just hard, especially if they're not leaving enough room. You kind of have to just make the room to do it. But you were able to just snake all the way through traffic, pass me, and then go for the win.
Right, and I mean, it's all about keeping momentum. I mean, in these cars, you have 160 horsepower is the limit. So it's not like with traffic, you can just go around them, put your foot down, and blow by them. You actually have to start timing those runs, thinking ahead, getting that, mental chess game going while driving fast in race car.
All right, cool. Hopefully I'll see you again really soon.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for all the tips.
You couldn't help it, huh? You had to come race with us.
Yeah. I can't. If I can't stay away from a good race.
Good to see you. Good to see you in this.
Yes.
The last time I think I photographed you driving was probably in, what was it, your Pontiac?
Yeah, the GTA.
Dude, that thing is so cool.
Yeah.
But that's the whole thing, fast cars versus fast driver. This is for the fast driver.
Yes. And this thing, you can get way more fun out of it than any other car I've ever driven.
So,
This is a
okay,
good one.
I'm at this point. I'm so happy. I'm happy as a clam, by the way, because I just went up to the tower and they sent in my rookie card, so I'm not a rookie anymore.
Oh.
But I'm at this point where I just need to figure out what to do. And so this weekend, I raced Spec E30 because there were no Miatas available for rent. I wanted to rent a Spec Miata and join you guys.
Yeah, well.
But it didn't happen, so I had a chance to at least try Spec E30.
Well, you were in the same run group, so you at least got to see the mayhem of Spec Miata.
What a crazy...
Yeah.
I don't even know. It was just a show.
I was seeing all of it firsthand, and it was wild because I had a pretty bad other couple of races, but was able to work my way up on that final race, and it was all happening right in front of me, and it was just reflexes to get around this stuff.
Yeah, because you started in the back of the pack because you didn't make it to grid on one race.
Yeah.
And that's when you joined us.
Yeah.
But then that allowed you to kind of snake through everything, and wow, that was so cool. I really love the livery on this. So the Heat Wave livery, tell me a little bit about your inspiration for the livery.
Well, mellow yellow, Days of Thunder, it's just kind of an iconic look, and it just seemed to work perfect. We got the palm tree in there and the sun, and
it's so good.
And we got 2 of them. My buddy Graham Downey, who also works for the company, he's got just the kind of the purple stripe version, and so we're out there on track, and it looks pretty official when we got 2 team cars out there.
It's so cool.
And people don't know who they're battling with, but it looks It looks really cool because
This is pretty much the way, really, to get into club racing, amateur club racing.
and I would say this is the way to stay into it. Like, I have quite a few cars, and if I had to get rid of everything, this is the car. This car right here is the one car that I would keep. Like, if you like to drive, this is it. If you like to race, there's between 30 and 40 cars in the run group. Like, what were you running in Spec E30? Is there like 8 cars?
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
We lost one.
Yeah.
So we lost 10% of the field when one crashed.
Yeah. So and sometimes it's like 6. You know, like Spec E46 has gotten big, but that's an expensive car. Like, these things you can find for around 10 grand, already spec'd out with a cage and everything. Someone else has built it, and you can start racing just like that. Just apply for your provisional.
Good to see you as always.
Yes.
Just so much fun. What a great weekend. Like, I was telling the guys, my arms are just like noodles, man. There's just nothing left. So thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next video.
Yes, and
Cool.
get yourself a Miata.
Yeah, Miata's always the answer.
It can come out with us and race. Like, seriously, this is the best class. Like, and no matter where you go, there's a deep class. Like, and it's cheap. For the most part, it's pretty cheap.
How many cars did you have this weekend race in the field?
I think it was 31 to 35 cars, something like that. And
we lost a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah, a few. There's always a few that like peel off or people that can't handle it. But yeah, I think we ended up with like 27 on this last race, something like that, which is
what
which
an
is great.
unforgiving track this place.
Yeah, it
Walls
can be.
everywhere.
Yeah. Well, that's a nice thing too. It's like it's a little bit slower speed, so like the walls you're not carrying so much speed off of the track, so you're like kind of less risk of like wall damage. You know, you could still get damaged, but I would say it's less than like a Spec Corvette or E46 where you're carrying a ton more speed through stuff where things happen a lot faster. Yeah,
Cool.
I love this thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.